All right, guys, welcome back to the NLF Coaching Podcast. Today we are joined by Ryan Moore, a men's physique natural competitor, pro natural competitor that competes internationally. We've met Ryan through obviously the OCB, but he competes globally. So Ryan, give yourself a little bit of introduction. Tell everybody kind of what you do for your career-wise and kind of how you got into bodybuilding.
Thank you. I just want to begin by thanking you for having me. I love tuning into your show. I think it's definitely informative to a lot of people that have questions about bodybuilding and just fitness in general. So my name is Ryan Moore. I'm a 6-time pro men's physique champion. I competed internationally. I've done 23 career shows. I competed in all different types of federations, from NPC to OCB to USBF to WNBF. So I've experienced a lot of different federations, and I just absolutely love competing, and it's been like a lifestyle choice for me. And I've just been just on this journey, and I don't look to end my journey anytime soon. So it's just been a lot of fun, and I made a lot of connections along the way. And I also judge too. So I'm very involved with the sport, and I love staying natural.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Obviously, we've seen you compete quite a few times. So I know you started bodybuilding. Was it back in 2014?
So I didn't get started in bodybuilding until my late 20s. I was not really looking to step on stage until I felt like I was ready. And I did my first show through the NPC. And it was one of those things where I met guys in the gym that were doing shows, and I talked to them about it, and it kind of sparked my interest. And I met my first coach in the gym, where he just kind of, pushed me to be the best, like perform the best in the gym, just pushed me to be better. He was a heavier guy than me, so I would be, trying to stick with him with weights, and he just, really pushed me to be the best. So I ended up signing up to do a show in the NPC, and I learned a lot about myself after doing my first show. So,
what would you say the big takeaways were from for you in that first prep? I think everybody has there's so much lack of knowledge going into your first prep. You don't know what to expect, the diet and all that stuff. What was that like for you, and how did that kind of change your perspective on it?
So for me, the physique was there. It was, I thought I brought a really good physique. It was the posing. And I was looking up on YouTube on how to do posing. This was in 2018 is when I did my show. So I wasn't really using social media as much as I was using like YouTube. And I found posing practices on YouTube, and it just, it wasn't enough to really get me to do well in that show. And I think if I were to look back, I was just trying to do a lat spread, just for trying to spread my lats when I hit that back pose. And I was pinching my back. So my back looked smaller. In my mind, I thought I was doing it right the entire time. And then it wasn't until after I saw the pictures and I got the judges' feedback. They're like, hey man, you got all the criteria to do well in the sport. You just need to get the posing down. And that's when I told myself I'm just going to take some time just to kind of find a good posing coach. So,
yeah, the posing is such an important part of a prep, right? It's you can always tell, as someone I know you judge, so as a judge, you can always tell who's a lot of time with their posing, and
it can make and break a physique. It's little things like that I didn't think it would be a big factor, which was I'm built for it. I'm just going to walk on stage and just hit the poses that I think are going to be I knew the poses that they needed, but it was just there are small things that make a huge deal with posing. And it's when you're on stage, you're almost you're almost putting on a show to make that illusion, to make you look like you have a thinner waist and broad shoulders, and just the way you turn your body and hold certain angles. It's just it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think the big thing there, obviously you can leverage your physique to accentuate certain strengths and hide certain weaknesses. But when I know for myself, and probably you guys as well, when we first got started, social media wasn't there wasn't as much access to posing coaches, and now people have full-time coaching businesses where they just do posing coaching. It's such a
I know it's everything's at your fingertips so much easier now than when it was back in 2018. So if it wasn't for one of my buddies at the gym, he connected me with a guy in the OCB. His name's Sean Canoy. He's helped me so much over the years of just getting better. And I can't thank him enough, because I thought, he taught me more than just what it takes for the posing. He taught me a lot of things with just getting ready for the show and prep and all that. So when I was an amateur, he was a pro, and he was just kind of showing me the ropes, and it just helped me tremendously.
Yeah, it's I remember back in the day, it was like prep coaches had to wear the hat of the prep coach, the programmer, and also the posing coach. And now it's like there's people that you can just refer it to, because there's people that just are experts at it, and it does make such a big difference for somebody. And like putting time and effort and investment into like learning how to properly pose,
Yeah,
it can get better too.
yeah. You think about it. You put all that time in the gym, you put all that time with like doing the diet, and it's like, you take that little extra time in the posing, and that will make or break your stage presence. So
I got a question. When you brought up the when you started bodybuilding, right? Something that would help a lot of the younger athletes that are getting into the bodybuilding, whatever organization they would like to get in, the feeling ready, right? You said you wanted to make sure you were ready, and you were ready to get on stage. And what was that trigger that you pulled that said, okay, I feel ready? And is there anything different today that you would give advice on that you see differently now in terms of feeling or being ready to get on stage?
that's a great question. So I think everybody in their mind, well, me in particular, I like to set goals, and I have like pictures of how my physique looks as I go progress each month, and I track numbers and everything, whether it's with my diet or just with my weights, and like how much I'm lifting at the gym or what my weight is on the scale. So I think a lot of it has to do with like tracking. And if you're, putting on that muscle or that size over the course of so many months, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready to start doing like maybe like a 20-week prep to get ready for the show. You see how you're progressing week by week leading up to that show, and then you start getting in your mind, you're like, hey, this prep's going to take me a little bit longer. I might need a few more weeks, or hey, I'm actually ahead of schedule. I could probably do a show in 15 weeks versus the 20 weeks. So I just think, proper tracking, just trying to track your numbers and see how you look with your physique, and just also getting an input from your coach who's going to be supporting you, and just trying to be like, hey, I want to see you bring your best package, because you're not only representing yourself, you're representing me as a coach. When I put you on that stage, I want to make sure that, hey, I brought this athlete in looking peeled and looking at the best they've ever looked. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, but for me, it's just like just setting those goals. A lot of them are short-term goals leading up to that one show. And then if we're hitting those goals and everything's going in smoothly, then I'll just kind of ride it out to the show day.
Yeah. So kind of backtracking a little bit to when you first got into competing back, it was 2018, right?
Yeah. 2018's when I did my first ever show.
Okay. So I know you started out in NPC, you said, and then you transitioned it over into some natural federations. Like what was the big difference you noticed there? And like, what was the driver to switch over to like a natural federation?
So nothing against the NPC. I think NPC brings great competitors. I just felt like going into there was like this ego that I felt going in, and you kind of look at it like the competitors kind of look at you, and it's not like a warm welcome when you come in. I just felt like I was like, oh, okay, like, first time competing, I don't really have super high expectations. I mean, obviously I want to come in and win, but at the same time, I realize this is my first show, so I'm not going to take it too much to heart if, depending on how I do. So I'm just going to kind of go in there. It's more of a learning show for me. But yeah, I think once I did the NPC show, I felt like, I would want to maybe do another show with an organization where they do test the competitors. So I feel like it's more of an even playing field across the map, and end up doing like an OCB show. And I just felt like when I came into that show, I felt like there was more of a warm welcome. I think the competitors were a little bit more friendly. I did meet like great and friendly competitors at the NPC, but I just felt like with the vibe I got going in the OCB and some of these other natural federations, I just felt like it was more of a warm welcome. So, but I feel like there's a fit for each competitor in different federations. Some people might like NPC or WNBF more than they do OCB, or they like OCB. So it all depends on like the vibe you get going in, and who you connect with, and just how the judges like your physique, because certain federations have different types of criteria based off of the physique you're bringing to the stage. So some of these federations like more of a leaner look, some of them like more size. So depending on like what class you're doing and what federation you're going into, you might, like, as a beginner at like competitor, I would just kind of look into it and just do your research.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you have to just kind of see what federation you vibe with. But at the end of the day, it's like you want to make sure that you're getting connected with a community of like-minded people that you
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you don't know until you try it. And it's like one of those things like, hey, I'm going to try it, see how it feels. And, if it feels like it's a good fit, I'm going to continue going through it.
Yeah, and I think kind of going off what you said, like different federations have different criteria and stuff like that. I feel like, and you can probably attest this where you've competed in different areas. I feel like different regions of the country almost judge things differently as well. Would you say you've noticed that, like certain parts of this country and maybe other countries? I know you've done international.
Yeah. So I did an international show. It was it's been on like my bucket list for so long. I have a cousin that lives out in Dubai. She found out I got my pro card through this federation, and she's like, since you're so serious about this, you should come out and visit me in Dubai, and you can do the show. And I ended up looking up the show, and I was like, wow, it seems like it's a really cool show to experience. And I had the opportunity to do it, so I ended up just pulling the trigger and doing it. And the competitors out there are a different type. I mean, they're phenomenal. There's competitors from all over the world that are coming in to Dubai to do the show. So it's not just like, competitors just in the United States. It's like competitors in Europe, competitors in Asia, Africa, and you just meet people from different countries. And it just that experience and just being able to be on stage with people from other countries, it almost feels like you're in the Olympics kind of. That's like kind of the closest, I feel like I could ever be with going into the Olympics, is doing something like international like this, where you're on stage competing against other people from different countries and just trying to you feel like you're not only just representing yourself, you feel like you're kind of representing your country too. So just having that experience was such a once in a lifetime thing. So I think, but yeah, what they judge for in that country might be a little bit different from what they judge in the United States. So I know going into that show, I was like, I don't know what they're kind of, what I should bring to stage, more of like a conditioned look, or try to bring a little bit more size. So I try to do like a balance between, and I ended up placing, better than I was anticipating. I got to the overall, ended up placing 5th overall. So I was just like extremely happy about that. But it was just one of those like life experiences where I was just like, I just want to go and do it and just meet people and see, what other people are bringing to the stage from different countries. So
yeah, it's amazing. I always find it fascinating when there's like an international show and you get people from other countries kind of tied into the sport. It's almost like the World Cup going on right now. You got all these people like tied into one event, right? It's really cool.
Oh yeah. In some of these other countries, they look at these sports in a whole different light than what we look at sports in our country. Sometimes they look at it like, oh my God, this is like one of the best things ever. They hype it up to be so much bigger than our country. So it's interesting. It's definitely a neat experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember watching like your Instagram stories and being like, "What's this dude doing in Dubai?" And then I saw I was like, "That's it. That's it."
Yeah. I was going to compete the Yorton that year, and my cousin was getting married that same weekend, and I was like, I want to do a show that was like a top tier show that was just as challenging as the Yorton, and it was falling around that same time where I was like, I just did the Viking show, and then I was like, this will fall. The weekend after the Viking show was that Dubai show, and then the weekend after that was the Yorton, which I had to go to my cousin's wedding. But I was just like, this is the perfect time to pull the trigger. I'm in the conditioning, I'm in the shape. Let's do it. So
that's unreal. So I know you've been a pro for quite a while now, but so when you transitioned over into like the OCB and some of the other national federations, how long did it take you to achieve your pro card? Because I know that's a lot of our listeners are in the national space, and I think nowadays there's a lot of pressure around people that like the expectation is to, like, you're just going to turn pro like right off the bat, but there is a process. So how long was it for you, and what was that process like?
So I ended up doing, my second show was the Battle for the Belt. I took 2 years between the NPC show and to going into the first OCB show. And I made sure, like, there was stuff that the judges gave me feedback wise that I took and ran with it, and ended up I didn't want to rush back to stage. So I gave myself a few years, but I did the battle for the belt, and ended up, winning my class, got to the overall, and I just came up short from winning the overall and getting the pro card. And I mean, the guy that I was on stage with looked phenomenal. I think him and I brought really good conditioning. I was in a bigger class than him, so I was a little bit bigger size wise. But I mean, his conditioning on stage was really good, and he was able to hold the poses longer. For me, I started getting gas. I started gassing out, and I think the judges saw that, and they're just like, hey, I think you're right there. Like, don't get discouraged. Try to get into another show as soon as possible. And I ended up looking on the OCB website, and I saw there was a show in White Plains, New York. It was the 9/11 Tribute to Heroes. So I ended up signing up for that, and did that show. I took the judges' feedback they gave me from the Battle for the Belt, made slight adjustments with my coach at the time, and ended up winning the class and winning the overall. And then as soon as I won the overall, I was like, before I end my season, I want to see how I do in the biggest show in the country. So I ended up doing the Yorton that same year. And I was like, if I'm going to be going against these pros, I want to see how I line up against the best. So I threw myself in the Yorton. That was up in Pittsburgh, and ended up placing 5th in my class. So I was like, this is good opportunity to get the feedback. So I took 2 years off, and then ended up coming back to do the presidential. I think that was back in 2023. So I took that 2021 or 2022 off, and then came back the next year and just performed as best I can. So
that's awesome. So would you accredit that time off between your first show, that 2 years you took off, to a lot of the progress that you made?
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's hard to stay off stage when you're competing, because it's just like you see other people like on stage that you competed against, and you're like, oh man, like I would love to be back on stage with that person and battle it out again. But I think, me taking those 2 years off between when I finished the Yorton to when I started competing at the presidential again, I think I looked the best coming back, because I put so much size on over that course of 2 years, and I just mentally stepped away and just kind of like got my mind on other things. And I still was working out and still was sticking to a plan, but I just felt like I was able to kind of focus on other things and then come back with like a refresh like mindset and be like, I know what I want now. This is my goal. And I just kind of went right after it. And, I think with the coaching helping me and the posing, I think all that just factored into just making me perform the best on stage.
Yeah, I think it's so important to take that time away from the stage. So many people, when they first get into competing, they get that rush and they're so excited to do it again and again and again.
Oh yeah.
It is so valuable to be disciplined.
There's nothing else like it, man. When you get on that stage, it's just like, it doesn't matter if you place first or last, just getting on stage and just being like, not a lot of people can say, hey, I felt I was, put this much time in, I look this good in my life. I feel like that looks good. And I got on stage, like just stepping on stage is a huge accomplishment. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can all attest that like the time in between has made such a big difference. I know for myself, like when I first started competing, I did probably too many shows too quickly together. Didn't give myself enough time to improve. But the best I've ever looked, I felt like, was when I took 2 to 3 years in between. I think GT impresses that as well.
Oh yeah,
That's what it took.
it's a game changer, man. Seriously.
I think people forget that it's bodybuilding, right? Not competing. Right. There's a huge component of it of time in the gym building your physique up to where it's worthy of putting on stage and making progression. Right? So it's like, if you don't lock in and love that part of it, it's going to be really hard to be successful in the sport.
Yeah, and I mean, unless you're like a new person that's hitting the gym for the first time, that first year called like the newbie gains, you'll see the most muscle growth in your life. And then after that, I mean, you and I have been in the game for so long now. We'll be lucky to put on like a couple pounds of muscle a year. It's at that point where it's like it's got to be a patience game. It's not a marathon. I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint kind of a thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is like, as a competitor and as a judge, like, where do you see people making the most mistakes when it comes to getting into the sport of bodybuilding, like for the first time, prepping for their first show?
That's a good question. I think sometimes the competitor doesn't always listen to the coach, and there's times where I feel like I question my coach's, decisions on what I should be doing leading up to the show for my physique. And, it's the best thing to do is just have an honest conversation with your coach and just be like, listen, this is how I feel, versus I'm going to go behind my coach's back and try to do something that I think will make my physique look better on stage, because that's not always the case. And, there's a reason why you're spending this money to hire this coach, and you just got to let that coach make the decisions based off what they think's best for you. And if at the end of the day, if you don't feel like you put out the best physique you think you could have put out, then you might want to reevaluate and be like, maybe I should look elsewhere about maybe hiring a different coach, or maybe I should just have a one-on-one with my coach and just, talk about how we can bring a better package. So I think a lot of it's just trusting the person that is coaching you. And if you don't have a coach and you're self-coached, it's just about like, maybe going back to your drawing board of what your notes are and be like, how can I change my, dynamic on what I should do leading up to the next show. So I think everything's just like a learning experience anytime you do a prep.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so cool to like collect the data from past preps and kind of look at it and assess and say, all right, this is what works, this is what didn't work.
Exactly.
In terms of that, like what does your prep approach typically look like? I know you work with Milligan, right? Like, what do you guys usually look like for getting stage ready in about 20 weeks?
So him and I, he's got such a history of bringing people up as far as like from like their first show to becoming like pros and winning pro shows. And I saw, how well he brings his competitors in, and he's in my mind. I'm like, if I'm going to go with a coach, I want to make sure it's somebody that I feel confident in, and I felt super confident working with him. But just going like as far as like the prep goes, him and I will talk almost like every day, and I'll do my check-ins each week with him, and he'll adjust my meals based off how I look each week. And we're constantly having like low days and high days where we're fluctuating the carb intake. So there are certain days where I can have more carbs. If I'm doing like, I'll try to schedule my leg days where I'm intaking more carbs, and then like other days will be more of a lower carb day. This is all during the prep period. So, and based off how my physique looks by the end of each week, we're basically trending down with my weight. But we're not trying to trend down fast enough where I'm losing muscle. We're trying to maintain as much muscle as we're getting ready for the prep. But that's why we have like, where he gives me some cheat meals, and then he'll fluctuate my high and low carb days accordingly based off my exercises I'm going to be doing for the day, and then, how the week pans out. So.
Very cool. That's awesome. I always like hearing about different approaches for how people approach getting stage conditioned. So for you guys, like obviously you do multiple show seasons typically, right? Like
I do. This past season has been a very unique season for me because I don't normally extend my season as long as I did. I did like 9 shows in a course of 11 months, which is unheard of. It's ridiculous. But I just got in this. I just felt like I was holding my physique very well as the months progress. And I'm like, if I'm holding my physique, I don't think there should be any reason for us to stop. I mean, if I'm like looking like I'm washed out on stage or just not really bringing my best physique on stage, I think that would be a time for us to kind of reevaluate and set new goals. But I just felt like him and I went on like a bit of a run there, and especially these past few weeks. But I told myself before No Gear, I was like, I'm going to end this show after Los Campeonatos, like end my season after Los Campeonatos. It doesn't matter unless I win like every show between No Gear and Los Campeonatos, I might consider the Orton, but I just need a mental break. And I just told Dave, I'm like, I think this is what I have in my mind is just to finish after Los Campeonatos and just take some time between now and the end of the year to just like regrow and just try to build again. But yeah, it's hard. I think I tell athletes, like competitors, I'm like, ideally you like to try to consolidate your shows in a few months. So you're not, going long periods of time with, you're basically like in a depletion. You want to just try to consolidate those shows. So you're in a low, like just a few weeks of depletion before you go back into growing again. So
yeah, in regards to like your approach to like that back end of prep, do you find it challenging to stay like stage lean for a while? Like, do you experience a lot of the physiological side effects of being that way? And when you get out of prep, is it hard for you mentally to allow yourself to get some body fat back on? Is that something you struggle with?
Yeah.
Is that a good conversation that a lot of like younger competitors need to hear? And any competitor, it's a mentally, that side of the sport is very challenging.
So I definitely think there's a whole science behind this, but based off what my experience is my body just starts like adapting to changes. So I've been in such a depletion state for so long that my body's just used to the meals, like the lower carb meal days. And like peak weeks for me used to be very challenging when I just get out of an off season and I do my first prep. But then once my body starts adapting, I feel like it's not as challenging for me to get ready for those shows for that weekend coming up. So, but now typically I think it is a very challenging adjustment trying to be more selective of the meals you're eating. You got to be mindful of like what you're putting in your body leading up to the show. And then once you're finished the show, you want to reverse diet. Just so you don't, you want to make sure your metabolism is going to be responding correctly and everything. But I just think going back to eating like normal, it's tough because you have to be mindful of the fact like your body's been so used to tolerating this low carb, high protein diet and leading up to these shows. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. But for me, I think I just felt like my body just started getting, used to the fact of this is like normal. And now I'm going back to what most people consider normal. And it's different for me. It's just a little bit of a transition.
Yeah, I think when you dedicate so much time to being so rigid with your diet, there's a natural component where it's going to require some time to get back mentally okay with eating a bit more and having a little more fluff, right? Like,
right.
Because you're analyzing your physique daily and weighing and being so meticulous to transition away from that and slowly build back up to feel more.
Yeah, and it's just
change.
Yeah, and it's just being able to visualize it and just accept it. I know body dysmorphia is a real thing. It's serious. It's like, people look at you and you're like, wow, people look at you and they're like, you look phenomenal. Like, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, well, this isn't how I want to look, even though it's kind of like definitely kind of screws with your mind a little bit when you get that deep into prep and you start looking at yourself and you start critiquing little things. And at the end of the day, you got to just kind of not be so analytical about that and just kind of let your coach trust your coach and just let things kind of roll with that.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to this, but like you'll be working out on the gym floor in the off season and somebody will come up and be like, dude, you look lean, you look great. And like you've just looked at yourself in the mirror and been like, I'm so soft.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm flat right now. I'm low carbs. I'm not anywhere where I want to be. And it's just like, it's a real thing, man.
Once you pick up the weights and start competing, you never feel big enough and you never.
I know.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
So in regards to like your off-season approach, like what does that look like when you guys are transitioning out, like reverse dieting and moving into like a growth phase? Like what does that approach look like for you in your lifestyle?
We're just he'll allow me to have like free meals like after the show just to kind of enjoy the fact that, hey, like that, the competition's over. Let's go out, have a free meal. But then we'll, Monday we'll be back on just we're basically just doing the same exact diet that we were doing leading up to prep, but it's a little bit higher carb days. And we're just gradually adding carbs as each week, as it gets later and later throughout the week and into the next week. So, but still doing like, the cardio and the workouts, but it's just, we're kind of like gradually getting back into it again. So it's not like we're going to be going back into the gym, lifting like the heavy weights again. It's like we're, gradually getting back in, just doing like modest amount of weights. And it's like hard for me because I just want to go back in and try to hit PRs again. And I realize like it's not going to happen. It's going to take time for you to kind of build that muscle that you lost over the course of that 20-week prep. So,
yeah, I would say in regards to the reverse dieting process, I think a part that people really overlook, it's not just about being restrictive and building back your calories slowly. It's also about building back your like training tolerance and your recovery and all of those factors as well. Because you've been in this deep depleted deficit for so long, your body's not in a healthy spot to just flip a switch and start growing. But people get that energy back from the extra carbs and fats, like post show. They feel like, oh, I'm gonna go be Iron Man in the gym again, but your body's not ready. There's merit to taking time and trusting that process of reverse dieting. I know it sucks and it's not enjoyable to feel hungry, but have to be restricted as you build back up. But there's a reason for that process in place, and that's why I think it's so important for people to at least work with their prep coach a few months post prep to get them back into a healthy off season phase. Because I think that's the hardest part of prep, really. Because like when you know you're getting on stage, you're not going to cheat on your diet because you know you got to be judged. But like you get off and there's no like direct immediate goal, it's very challenging to adhere to your program.
Exactly. And you got to be careful with, hitting the gym again and just the weights. And that's how I ended up getting injured after I did this. The last Yorton I did, I was trying to get ready for Mr. America. And 4 days after the Yorton, I was doing like the lat pull down machine. And I was going harder than I should, rolling out from like 4 days after a show. And I felt like a pop, ended up tearing my bicep tendon. And it just I ended up having to cancel my entire season. I had to reschedule the Mr. America for the following year, and I had surgery. I went to an orthopedic surgeon, ended up repairing the tendon, reattached it back onto the shoulder. But if I let that go, and there's some people that don't, it doesn't require surgery, but I figured, if I'm going to be on stage being judged, I want to make sure I look symmetrical as possible. So I only had a short window to get that repaired before that muscle fuses. So ended up getting it repaired. And I'm so happy I got it repaired because I made a full recovery. I'm not having any kind of limitations as far as my strength on either end, on the side. So I definitely highly recommend, just if you ever get injured, just have somebody like a professional look at it and see if it's something that needs to be repaired or something that you can rehab.
Yeah, absolutely. I know JT and I have been fortunate enough to not experience any major setback injuries like that. But I am curious from an aesthetic standpoint, when you go through something like a bicep tear where you're having to have surgery and repair it, what does the approach look like for you trying to kind of regain symmetry in that arm post surgery and get it back into competing?
So the orthopedic surgeon, his name is Dr. Sean McMillan. He's phenomenal. He works with athletes. A lot of them were professional athletes he's worked with. And he knew how much I was itching to get back in the gym. And he said, for now you can do like lower body, but you need to give this time to heal. And eventually it did heal over like the course of 3 months. And he started lifting limitations for me where I could start doing like very light resistance bands into, slowly phasing into weights and doing a little bit more like strength training. But it was just a matter of just trying to just focus on doing a little bit more exercises on the right side to build it back to where this left side is symmetrical with weight and size. So, I didn't have to go to like a rehab for it. He just said, hey, I trust that you can do this yourself. You just have to be mindful of the fact that you are still healing and there are some limitations. So I just kept that in mind. And once I felt like this was fully healed, I felt like it just was a matter of a few months before I started getting that strength back to where it was equal to the left side.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a big element of having to be patient with that whole process.
Yeah. It's the last thing any competitor would want to deal with, but it's just a matter of being patient. Like the sport has taught me so many patience, just to be patient in everything, and every aspect of it is just about being patient. So as much as I wanted to rush back to the stage, I just knew, my time will come. So
it is exactly that. This whole sport requires patience across the board.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, you're going to rush into things and it's not going to turn out the way you want it to. You actually have to put in the work. You have to track everything that we've talked about so far. It's literally patience. You have to,
exactly.
You have to take your time. You have to do it the right way. If you want the results you're looking for on stage, it requires patience.
And that's the beauty of the sport, man. A lot of young competitors, they want to see the results, and they're like, I don't want to wait till I'm in my late 20s to look the best. I want to, I want the results now, and they'll, go towards some kind of enhancement to get those results. But you got to think about what the long-term effects are from taking those enhancements, and are you going to be competing so many years after taking these enhancements if you're in your early 20s? Like I'm getting close to my 40s now, and it's like, I feel like my physique has only improved every year since I've got past my 30s. I thought my prime was going to be in my 20s, and I was just like thinking in my head, I'm like, oh man, like, my testosterone is going to drop. I'm not going to put on as much muscle as I'm hoping, and then, I realized that's not true. It's, you can continue keeping your testosterone up as long as you exercise a healthy lifestyle, your diet's on point, you're getting enough sleep, and you're, doing strength training. I think, sky's the limit. And, there are competitors in the OCB that I look up to, like the Desario and Marcus Harris. Those guys are older than me, and they're bringing a better package every time they step on stage. So for me to see that, that's just super motivating.
Yeah, it's insane. I think the longer I'm in the sport and around it and competing with people that are in their 40s and just like older and bringing such a great work, I've realized that the less I believe in like the genetic ceiling, like I think a lot of it is literally just time and patience. And if you don't have those things, like you don't have enough skin in the game, years in the gym, and the patience to see like what your physique's really capable of, you're never going to truly know, and you're always going to like set limitations and self-limiting belief on yourself.
Yeah.
You can outwork a genetic ceiling in someone who doesn't want to do the work. It's only a small portion of it, which is a fantastic thing. But you play the game right. It is one big game. Like you going into prep, you got to understand how to come out of prep. You got to get into an off season. You got to get away from it for a little while. Understand you're living a life. And it's also still bodybuilding. We're still trying to grow. We're still trying to put in the work. But it's a long-term game that you can have a great time with and get on stage. It's a hobby. It's enjoyable in every aspect, but you got to understand it. You got to grow in patience. You got to grow. I was talking to a client of mine that like as a philosophy kind of asked me that question. I was like, honestly, bodybuilding is more than what it sees that people see. Like you will build character. You will build this like person that you never knew was a part of you until you get into the sport. That's a beautiful thing about it. Is bodybuilding is more than just muscle. It's more than just looking pretty. You will develop a new mindset. You develop so much like your endurance, your resilience. Even like you can really build a lot from it than just muscle. Everybody sees the muscle and the stage presence, but they don't see what kind of person you have become from just getting into a prep and seeing like, oh my gosh, I can really push myself and say, yes, I can do this. And that builds so much more than just a muscle.
Yeah, and a lot of people look at you, and there's a respect there where it's like, this person respects their body. I think about it like if I go into someone's home and they have it really well organized and clean, it's a more respectful thing than somebody that just doesn't take care of their house and just leaves stuff all over the floors and leaves mess. So it's just like, I get a lot of respect at work, get a lot of respect outside of work. It's just it's one of those things where you kind of carry yourself better. You feel mentally, more focused. I feel like, I wake up and have a purpose. I have something I have, work hard towards every day. So it just gives me more, purpose in life.
Yeah. And it's hard to explain to somebody that's not ever given the sport a try. It's like, why do you starve yourself to get on stage? It doesn't seem
right.
Fun. Well, it's part of the process. It's not the entire process, right?
Nope.
Like it's a lifestyle year round that I value what it brings to me and what it helps me, how it helps me elevate as a person.
Yeah. And usually the people that have the hardest time understanding it are like the closest people in your life, but they're also the people that support you the most in your life. And they see how dedicated and how much you love this and, how much of a better person it's making you. Because, it is a selfish sport where it's like you got to think about yourself and what you're eating and getting all your meals in. And it takes like somebody with a lot of patience on the other end, that it could be your significant other or your family member to really be like your rock. And, I think everybody has that in bodybuilding where someone's like, you have someone that you talk to or just, just be able to like discuss any kind of like, problems you have as far as like getting to where you need to go with your goals. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Ryan, we got time for one more question for you
Sure.
today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of blend in two and one here. So as someone that's competed over 20 times now, and obviously you have a busy professional career as well, how do you balance and / stay motivated during all the things you have now and with you being sober for so long? Like, how do you balance all of that?
A lot of it's just trying to be one step ahead. So I do my meal preps. I try to get in the extra time I have. I try to use it as wisely as possible because I'm working 8 hours a day. That doesn't contribute that I have to drive an hour and back and forth to work. So that's 10 hours out of the day. And then I try to get at least 7 hours of sleep. So that's 17 hours. And then I'm in the gym for an hour and a half. So that's 18 and a half. And then, so the time that you have to use it very mindfully and just try to, get your meals in, plot everything. And then, there's stuff that happens at work. I'm supposed to be eating 5 meals a day. I try to eat a couple meals while I'm at work, but I try to do everything very timely. But there's times throughout the day where something happens at work and I miss a meal, or, I can't go do a workout because something came up and I have to work extra hours that day. So it's just about trying to manage time as best as possible. And there's going to be things that won't happen or won't work for you, and that will cause, cancellations with your trying to eat a meal for the day, or go to the gym or do your cardio in the morning. And it's just trying to get in later, or trying to try to fix it for the next day. So if I can't, get everything done that day, I'll just, be like, all right, I couldn't do it this day. I'm just going to pick up where we left off the next day and just not take it, too much to heart. Cause there's things where are out of your control that take a higher priority than bodybuilding. And it's just, it's just managing life. So you try to stick to your plan as best as possible. And that's, the best you can do.
Yeah, I think a lot of younger competitors first time getting into the sport really struggle to wrap their mind around the all or nothing approach. Like you can, right. I think people don't understand that it's a long process, and if you have one day where it's you're not checking all the boxes, as long as you do it tomorrow,
there might be a day where the time gets away from you and you didn't accomplish everything you achieve. Just don't let that bother you, and just start the next day and try to hit those goals. Hey, I ate all my meals, or I did my cardio this morning, or I did my workouts. I checked all the boxes today, but that's great. Let's try to do it again the next day. And if, something pops up and you can't, no big deal. Let's just try it again the next day. So it's just a matter of just trying to do the best you can.
Yeah, 1,000%. Well, Ryan, that's all we got time for today, but this was great, man. I really appreciate you jumping on. I know you got a busy schedule, so thanks for getting on here so our listeners could hear your story and talking about your passion for natural bodybuilding.
Yeah, I can't thank you guys enough for having me, and I wish you guys the best of luck, and I'll definitely be tuned into your podcast.
Sounds good, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Ron.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
32.